Guys, what's going on? Xander here with the Down to Business podcast. We appreciate you for being a listener. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, wherever you're at. We want to get engaged with you guys. I want to introduce you before we get into this episode because this is a really cool, exciting one. We have Jeremy Park, CEO and co-founder of swag.com, very large company, just got acquired by Custom Inc. As you guys know, they're a massive apparel and promotional goods company. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you where I talk to Jeremy about what it's like to be the CEO and co-founder of a almost $100 million company, the challenges, the tribulations, and the great entrepreneur insights into what he's done. So enjoy this episode. Make sure you comment anything awesome that you hear. We want you to have your voice heard. So thanks again, guys, and let's have a listen. Jeremy, how are we doing, man?
Doing great. Great to be here.
I'm excited. You're in New York City. I knew that the second I could see you. And that's pretty cool. I've been to New York City one time, Jeremy.
Oh, you got to come back. It's awesome. Awesome in the summer.
I went like 5 years ago. I'm a big baseball fan. And so I went to Yankee Stadium, of course. And, man, my Atlanta Braves whooped the Yankees. But, man, just such a cool place. The Bronx Zoo. Big Bronx Zoo fan, too.
You got to love it.
Dude, so sick. But Jeremy, I want to go right into it. So for our listeners who don't know who you are the, like I said, co-founder of swag.com, and you guys were just recently acquired last November from Custom Inc., big company. A lot of people know Custom Inc. Talk to us a little bit about, one, what swag.com is, and then the story behind it. So tell people a little bit about yourself, how you started it. You know, we're talking, you know, usually we talk to small business owners in the range of, you know, $0 to $10 million companies. Yours is much bigger than that. And so I'm really excited for people to hear perspective on something you started in 2016. It's not like this is 20 years old and it took you to grow this amazing company you've got. You got 98 employees now, you said, right?
Yep.
And so give us a little backstory on yourself and your company, man. I can't wait to hear this.
Yes, I have a somewhat interesting background. I used to be a documentary filmmaker. So I went to Boston University. I was making documentary films when I was, in 2006.
Okay.
My documentary, feature-length documentary, won the audience award at the Vail Film Festival. So I'm at this big film festival, and I'm on the top of the mountain. And I remember the next morning, there's this kind of quote-unquote celebrity brunch. And half the room were these amazing celebrities that everyone's heard of, and half the room were these more struggling filmmakers. And I did an internal gut check. Like, number one, did I love what I'm doing? And number two, was I that good at it? And both answers were no. And I kind of realized if I'm not loving it, I shouldn't be doing it. So I went back to BU, I graduated film school, and I knew that film was not my career path. And I wanted to start a business. I wanted just to learn what I was good at, what I enjoyed. And I had zero business experience whatsoever. So right after college, 21 years old, and I started a t-shirt company because I thought that a t-shirt company would teach me what I was good at. I would design a website, and user experience, and do production and manufacturing and marketing, and all the different aspects of business through a t-shirt company. We launched it in 2007. And if you could take yourself back to 2007, this is the last recession. So all these stores that we were selling to were going bankrupt, and it was a horrible time to launch a business. And I had this market-relating pricing model. It's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to dive in it. There was a market-relating pricing model I came up with where basically I tied the price of my t-shirts to the Dow Jones. So for every 100 points the Dow dropped, we would give a discount on their t-shirt price. And I wrote a letter to Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, obviously world famous entrepreneur. He had a blog called Blog Maverick. I still think it's there. And I just basically talked about this market relating pricing model. He loved the idea. He wrote about it in his blog. It ultimately got seen by Ad Age, who wrote about us, and got on the radar of this big CEO in the promotional product space. And the CEO of this company called MV Sport reached out to me, and we hit it off, and we became friends. And I really learned the ins and the outs of promotional products. And that's how I kind of found myself to this industry. Fast forward 10 years, I had a lot of different startups between doing that company under MV Sport. I started a company with Jesse Itzler, who's the co-founder of Marquis Jet, private jet company, Seco Coconut Water, owner of the Atlanta Hawks basketball team with his wife, Sarah Blakely. Yeah. I know you're from Atlanta. And
I'm close. I love the Braves, but the Hawks, awesome. That's awesome.
So we started a business together, and that one sold to a publicly traded company. But I was always super interested in the promotional product space from my early days, from that first job out of college. And I noticed that the industry is only growing. It's now a $40 billion industry. It's a massive industry, but the buyer changed. The buyer is no longer this 40 to 50-year-old office manager. It's a millennial. It's somebody who just wants to go on the site, find what they're looking for, design it, buy it in a matter of seconds. So 2016, launched swag.com to be that go-to platform for this next gen e-commerce buyer to allow them to purchase high quality promotional products. So just for
what I want to know is, how did you get that domain name still? Sure.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy story. So the original owner was asking over $1 million for it. And obviously I didn't have that money. No. But what we did is we worked out a deal where we would exclusively license the name for a 2-year period with the option to buy it. So it was a way for us to get the domain name from the start, it without actually having to purchase it and put money down. And ultimately, when we started making sales and things started to pick up in the beginning, we used that money, we raised a little bit of more money and ended up buying the domain name within 6 months after we launched.
So you basically leased to own it so you could build a bridge to having the cash.
Yeah, exactly. In the very beginning of any business, you don't know if it's going to work, right? Like no one knows if something's work, so you want to learn. And our idea from the very beginning was, I don't want to build anything. I want to see what we can do as grassroots, as bootstrapped as possible to learn from our customers to know what the right platform to build is.
I love that.
Early days was just me and my co-founder Josh knocking on doors, making sales, legitimately knocking on doors, making sales, getting feedback from our customers and trying to learn what's the right platform to build. So in the half of the year mark, first 6 months, we didn't build anything. It was literally just learning and making sales and learning and making sales and becoming what we call logo hunters. So trying to get those big name brands to get that social proof. Ultimately, we would start saying, okay, well, we know what the MVP should be, the minimum viable product. And basically, what should we build as the first iteration of the site? So we started to build it, launched the first e-commerce experience in 2017. We did about $1.1 million 2017. 2018, site's getting better, did about $3 million in sales. 2019, did over $7.5 million. 2020, we did over $15.5 million. Last year, we did over $33 million. And this year on track to do more than 60. So every year is just really learning from our customers, keep investing what we make, and trying to build the number one player in the industry.
How are you, okay, so we jumped this a little bit. So swag.com, your promotional products for businesses focused, obviously, but consumers can get anything they want as well, right?
Consumers can get it, but we are very focused on the
B2B.
Yeah. And there's obviously so many different buyers within the company that buy swag. So you just think of like, oh, Facebook buys swag. But think of who at the company buys swag. It's the office managers, HR, sales, the marketing. So we have to build the right platform for all those buyers and all the different use cases. So man, that's crazy.
So explain to me how you're doing this fulfillment. Like that's when I think of starting in 2016 and then doing 1.1 million in 1 year, basically. How did you set up that quickly? Your either distributor, co-packer, whatever to explain that process. And for people who are listening that don't know what that is, kind of give a 101 on what that process looked like to actually get, not just sell the product online. It's easier for someone to click a button and make a purchase, but the back end of that is difficult. Talk about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of suppliers out there and most of them are very poor. And our idea from the very beginning is we wanted to offer swag that people will actually want to keep. That was a very important thing to us. We went to so many different trade shows and events over my career as an entrepreneur, and most of this stuff ends up in the trash. Right? Yeah. It costs the company money, tarnishes your brand, and we wanted to do the exact opposite. So we knew from the very beginning we wanted to have a curated selection of products. I didn't want people coming to my site and having to search through thousands of notebooks. It makes it impossible to know what's good, and it also paralyzes them in terms of choice. They don't know what to choose. So we would set out the first year is just to learn all about the vendors and suppliers. And me and my co-founder, we frankly traveled all over the country. We used all of our upstart money to go to the suppliers, to visit them, to go to the trade shows, to feel the quality. And we narrowed it down to what we feel like was the best selection of products that will give customers enough of an option, but not too many options.
So not paralyze them. Like when you go on one of your main competitors, starts with a V, I'm not going to say it. They have so many options that it makes you feel like I'm not here to try to pick. I was here to come make it easier for myself. So that's what you're saying your solution is to go, we've done the thinking for you a little bit. You're trusting us on swag.com to give you the best selection quickly so you can move forward and make your selection. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. And another thing is those bigger companies that we were competing against when we started, they just plug into databases of thousands of products. They don't even know if the products are good quality. So for us, we want to test every single thing. I wouldn't want to sell anything on my site that people wouldn't be proud to show off. So that was a very important thing for us.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about how you did it. Okay. So now we know what swag.com is. And like I said, you just got acquired by Custom Ink, which is an incredible, they're a over $500 million company, right? They're a huge company.
Yeah. Over 500 million sales a year.
Over 500 million, massive. So congratulations on that. But let's kind of bring people, because what we do on this show is we try to give people practical ways to learn from other business owners, other executives, and say, okay, I can take what he just said and apply it to my business, whether I be a $400,000 company or a $4 million company, right? Or 400 million. How did you were profitable. You weren't in a ton of debt when you got acquired, right? Like you were profitable, correct?
Yeah.
Which is amazing, because when you watch Shark Tank, right, all these companies are swimming in debt and they've over leveraged themselves, whether it's leverage or they have too many, they've raised too much capital. How in the world did you stay disciplined and not kind of go with the trend, which is just raise and hopefully get bought? Like how did you do that process?
Yeah, we were very mindful to be very lean for our business. We wanted to have full control. We didn't want to be having to answer to so many investors. We wanted to grow profitably every sale. We wanted to make it make sense. Mm-hmm. And we also didn't want to grow too fast. It seems like we grew very fast, from 2016 to 2021 when we got acquired. But it was really methodical. It was thoughtful. We didn't want to build too many features. We wanted to take everything that we made in sales, reinvest it back into the business. And we wanted to launch things. And we knew that when we launched things, most likely we would fail. Yeah. I think every entrepreneur has to get into that mentality that you're not going to launch something and it's going to automatically work from day one. You have to launch it, learn from your customers, adapt and pivot. Like, for example, we have this feature called Swag in the Box, which allows companies to build fully custom branded kits, fully custom boxes where they could buy a notebook and a pen, a mug and a t-shirt, with crinkle paper and a note card for like an onboarding new hires and make it a really great experience. Right. We wanted to make the experience where you could build a Swag in the Box without having to talk to anybody. So completely hands-free. You can upload your logos, you mock it up, you bundle things up together, completely hands-free. The first version that we launched absolutely failed. No one used it. The experience was horrible. And instead of getting down about it, we knew that was the case, but we had something now in the market that is going to start getting feedback. Now customers come to us and say, hey, you can make this better. It'd be a lot easier if you did this or that. Take that feedback and adapt it. We launched a second version. It's a little bit better. We launched that Swag in the Box initiative 7 different times.
Before you got it right.
It took us over a year and a half to get it right. Last year, we did over $10 million with just that initiative.
Wow.
We had the idea. We knew that it made sense because customers were telling us they want that experience. Yeah. But we have to try things and test things and learn from our customers and remove the ego. As entrepreneurs, you always think you have the right answer. And most of the time you don't. You have to learn from your customers, pivot and adapt. I'll tell you one other quick story. Yeah. Right before Swag, I had a company that didn't work out. And it was a social networking app based on what you like, your favorite things. And it was like, it was called Vouch. You vouch for your favorite stuff. And it was kind of like democratizing Oprah's favorite things for everybody. That was the idea. And it ultimately had hundreds of thousands of followers, but it never took off to where it needed to be. It needed to be, social networking apps are extremely difficult. You need millions of users to start getting the ad revenue. We didn't launch it for over a year, about like 14 months, building the site, thinking about every feature, the nuances. I lost sleep over all the details. And what happened? When we launched the platform, none of the things that I lost sleep about that I thought were going to move the needle, customers cared about. It was complete other things I didn't even think about. Those were the things that customers really cared about. And from that moment, I swore to myself, every future business I do, I'm going to get out of my own way. I'm going to launch something even before I start building anything. I'm going to start learning from our customers, talking to the customers, seeing how they want the experience to be. So ultimately, I can start building the right platform. And
I love that. I love that. So Jeremy, so what you're saying to our listeners and what you learned to yourself is that your ideas don't really matter. The customer's experience, the customer's desires are what matter and is the driving force. Does that sound right?
100%. I would say, listen, everyone's ideas matter, but it's in balance. Like, for example, what we do right now is 80% of the features that we build are directly coming from customers telling us this is exactly what we want you to build. And we build it, and it might not be the best experience off the bat, but we'll ultimately get there. We know it's going to work because we have enough customers that come to us and ask us for the same thing. 20% of the things we build are just, stuff that we think could really push the industry forward. Yeah. And they might fail flat in its face, and that's okay. It's okay to try things and fail, but you should have a good balance of what's like innovative, what's different, what's unique to us versus what's really great for the customer. Because at the end of the day, you're building a business, you're building a product. It needs to be beneficial and help the customers. And there's years of features that we could still be building based on feedback from customers. And we just have to be mindful of, we want to keep chipping away at those things, but it's going to take time, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect overnight.
So tell me, as you journey starting in, not just 2016, you've been doing this business stuff for a while, one that didn't work out, one that kind of did. What was the hardest part personally and professionally, if you can be a little transparent and honest, right? Because there's lots of people listening to this, whether on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, who are struggling today. As they're listening to you and I talk right now, they might be thinking about closing up their business. They might be thinking about, am I going to go bankrupt? They might be trying to retire and had a good business, but they can't find anyone to buy it. And they need some encouragement from somebody who's done it. So what was the hardest maybe story you can share professionally and personally on the way up?
Yeah, so I have one story that kind of jumps out at me. So I spent almost 3 full years on a project that didn't work, Vouch, and spent every day. I'm spending just as hard as I'm spending on swag. I was spending on that product. So there's no difference between how hard I worked. I think I'm working smarter now, but I gave it my all. I gave it everything, and it didn't work. It didn't pan out, which is a very, very hard thing, especially for entrepreneurs. If you're thinking about an entrepreneur, you're not guaranteed success. You're just not. There's no industry you're guaranteed success, but there's some industries that you could go in, like being a doctor or a lawyer, where there's at least a path. You get promotions. Right. You're going towards a goal. You know that in 10 years I'm going to be this. Entrepreneurship, it may never work out, and that's the hard truth about it. That's the truth. So I was 30 years old or so, maybe 29 years old, when Vouch didn't work out, and I was single. So if you're a single person, 29 years old, I have no prospects, I have no career. I just spent 3 years of my life depleting my life savings, taking very little salary as an entrepreneur, especially as a founder of a startup. You take very little, making no money, watching all your friends, and you're happy for your friends, but people are passing you where you think. And I realized a lot of stuff at that point. Number one, people put these made-up dates of when they need to be successful by, or when they need to have things by. I need to be married by 30. I need to be a millionaire by 35. I need all these things. They're just self-imposed, and what that leads to is usually disappointment, frankly. Like, these self-imposed dates are just disappointment, So I had to conceptualize that. Then I got my first job. After I had that failure, I say, you know what? Wow. I'm not gonna start anything. I'm gonna work for a company. And I remember this story, and it's kind of funny today, but at the time it was really kind of crazy. I joined this company as an alcohol delivery startup in New York City. I walk in, everyone's very nice, probably a small team, 15 people or so. 30 minutes later, I find myself in the bathroom calling my dad. I said, Dad, I feel like I have to quit. My dad started cracking up on the phone. He's like, you've been there for 30 minutes. Like, what are you talking about? Quit. You just got this job. You just had 2 months of interviewing. You got this job. I said, I really just don't feel it. I feel like I'm in the wrong place. I think as entrepreneurs, you also have to go with your gut. Yeah. So I quit after 7 hours of the first day on the job, walking aimlessly through New York City, thinking, what is wrong with me? And what's wrong with me is I'm an entrepreneur. I think if you're an entrepreneur, you know it, and you have to follow your gut. 3 months later, I started Swag. 7 years later, we sell to the biggest company in our industry. I would have never started Swag if I was still at that company. You never know where things are going to lead. You have to really listen to yourself, listen to your gut, and make decisions and believe in yourself. So I would say that's kind of what got me to this point.
I love that. Yeah, you have to take risks, man. Like, there's risks like jumping off a cliff that's 500 feet and hoping you don't hit something. And then there's risks that is simply, I'm all in, right? Like, I think sometimes people get those things a little confused between a dangerous risk and just like, no, I'm all in. I believe in this. And I admire that about swag.com. I mean, what you've done with it is insane. So let's talk a little bit, Jeremy, about like what it's like running a company like you run today. Because to be clear, a lot of people think when you get bought, right, you get bought and you transform into the other company. But this time, no, you're just a branch off of their tree, so to speak. Your swag.com still operates completely separate. It's its own thing. Still, you're running I'm not going to say you're running the day-to-day, but you're still very involved, and you guys are up to 98 employees, you said, right?
Yep, exactly right.
So what does that, what's that look like? I mean, what's a day look like in Jeremy Park's life in a company of 100 people?
It's very much the same. There is a little bit more of like management and operational meetings I'm involved in now. Obviously, synergizing with Custom Ink's team because we want to learn from them. I mean, that was the main reason why we did this deal. We didn't have to do the deal. It wasn't like we needed to sell. We were growing. We were growing over 100% every year. It made sense for us to sell. And the reason was Custom Ink is the leader in the consumer space, right? If you're having a wedding, you're having a charity event, organizations, charities, and consumer, Happy Father's Day t-shirts. And we believe we're going to be the leader in the B2B space. If we could combine our forces and we could synergize, we have a lot of things that we could learn from them. I mean, they scaled up to nearly $600 million a year in revenue. We're a nothingness in comparison, right? We have a long way to go to get to where we want to be. And our feeling is we could learn from them. We could, operationalize and make the back end better. We could get better cost savings on the supply side, buying from similar vendors, shipping, all these synergies that we could learn from them. So that was the idea. But it's also very important for us that we maintain our own brand and our own identity. Because what we're doing, what we're building, who we're speaking to, and the customers that we're going after is very different than what Custom Ink is doing, right? We are strictly B2B, and we're really towards this next generation buyer, B2B. Yeah. And our belief is, why can't we get to 100 million? Why can't we get to $1 billion in sales? Like, that's really our belief. And I'll tell you a quick story.
Please
when
do.
We started the business, Josh and I, my co-founder, our dream was to get to $1 million of sales. Like, right? Like, when you start a business, $1 million seems like, wouldn't that be unbelievable to get to $1 million in sales? That would be unbelievable. Yeah. And in the back of our head, it was always like, well, what if we could get to 10 million? No, 10 million is impossible, right? So then we hit $1 million. And then the next thing is, what if we get to 2 million? And it was like, 10 million would be amazing. And then once we get to 10 million, it's like, that's unbelievable. What if we get to 20 million, right? And now next year, we should be doing over $100 million of sales. So in this perspective, 100 million wasn't even on the radar. It wasn't a thought. Yeah. It was nothing. Right. And my thinking is, how is that even possible? How can you go from a moment of it's impossible to a moment of that's probable, right?
Belief.
You get into that kind of shift.
Belief, man.
And it's consistency. It's doing the hard stuff every single day. It's not easy. It seems 7 years of every single day, showing up on the weekends, waking up early, working night, doing customer service chats, driving and making deliveries, doing all the things as a startup to learn and get better and hire people who are better than you to replace you, right? Like, there's no way to scale to where we are without having much smarter people than me saying, Jeremy, no, I got this. And it's just been like building and building and building. So my feeling is, number one, why do the self-doubt? Why have limitations? Why is 10 million impossible? Why is 100 million impossible? Why can't we do those numbers? I think anything's possible at this point, as long as you work hard.
Man, I love that. I think one of the hardest things as an entrepreneur, Jeremy, and you're talking right at it, is when you start something with a foundation, don't already put a roof on it. It's like, okay, I'm going to start this and my hope is to do this. It's like, man, just run hard at it and let's see where it takes you, Sure, have some measurable goals, right? But I think what you're saying, a lot of businesses that do really well, they could have been even greater if they just had the imagination and the belief, like you said, to press on, push forward. You said something really interesting. You said you have to show up every day. And I just had my father on the show as a guest this past episode, and my mom and dad owned a business for 36 years, and they sold it for 7 figures as well. And he's a pretty simple man, Southern, great guy, right? But he said the same thing. I said, Dad, what would you tell somebody? And he said, show up every day. Just put it in every day. Do you feel like this is more of a back-loaded question, but I think you're going to agree with me, maybe not. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Millennials, Gen Z, the newest entrepreneur, swing here. I'm 30. You're a bit older than me, but all I hear from my peers is they think if I start it up and it's a good idea, man, it's just gonna blossom. And
it's never the case. And I think a lot of the time it's people watch these movies and they think it's overnight, or they watch The Social Network and they see Mark Zuckerberg and they're building this thing and it's just that easy. It's just an idea. Yeah. It's never just the idea. It's what happens after the idea. The idea is a nothingness. There's millions of people doing the same exact thing as you're doing. There's 30,000 companies that sell promotional products. Put it in perspective, 30,000 people started the company thinking that they were going to be the next swag.com or the next Custom Ink or the next, right? There's a lot of companies that are doing it, but what makes one more successful than the other? It's showing up every day. It's doing the hard things. It's learning from your customers. It's adapting. It's trying to be innovative. It's throwing things against the wall that might not make sense. It's doubling down on marketing spend and advertising and creative advertising, SEO, when others are retreating. During COVID, I'll tell you a quick story.
Please do.
2017, I was part of this tech incubator called Techstars. It's like a incubator, kind of like a Y Combinator. And I'm based in Chicago. And part of Techstars is they connect you to other entrepreneurs in the local area. So I was taken to this company called Jellyvision in Chicago.
Okay.
And I go to Jellyvision and I'm walking around their office and they have 200 employees or so. And I go up on the second floor and they had 5 or so people sitting on the floor, boxing up swag themselves, handwriting note cards, unboxing things. It was mayhem. It was mayhem. And I thought to myself after leaving that room, why are companies wasting time doing this? There should be a better way. There should be a service that could not only store the swag for people, could bundle it up for them to write note cards, to do all these things, to individually distribute to remote addresses. I left that room in 2017 knowing that swag distribution was needed. We spent 2 years building it. 2020, we launched it. 3 months later, pandemic hits, the whole world is disconnected, the whole world's remote, no trade shows. So just imagine our sales went from $800,000 a month in 2020 to $300,000. Fell off a cliff. Why? No one's in the office buying swag. No one's going to trade shows buying swag. Right. No one's doing anything. The whole industry contracted. We ended up growing over 100% during the pandemic.
Because you doubled down.
How is that possible?
Doubled down.
We took the product that we built, changed the messaging, changed the branding, redesigned our whole website, redesigned how we advertise to it, and sold it as this is a way to keep your company's culture together even when no one's in the office. Buy swag, we'll warehouse it. Buy boxes, we'll warehouse it. Distribute it to remote addresses. Engage with the remote team. Onboard new hires remotely. We had to adapt, and we adapted. And I think a lot of people are afraid to adapt, and they sit on their hands and they say, "Woe is me." It's not my fault there's a pandemic, and they just let it ride out. But when things happen, just like we're dealing with potentially a recession coming up, you have to attack it. This is the time to attack. This is the time where all your competitors are retreating. You should be going and saying, well, how do I actually move forward? Yeah. So when the recession ends, I'm in a really amazing place, and I'm going to jump over and take all my competition.
How do you define success? Because I don't believe monetary is the success. What is your goal, mission of maybe not even just swag.com, but like your personal mission? I'd love to hear that.
It's a good question. Yeah, monetary success is nothing what I think about, frankly. It's about, feeling purpose, building something of value. I think in terms of just the business, when you start a business, there's a problem, and I want to solve the problem, and it kept me up at night to not solve the problem. So that was kind of one of the thing. And just building a team, when I'm able to hire somebody or I give somebody a promotion and I see the look in their face, that to me is inspiring, and that to me, makes me really excited. That's the most important thing in terms of the business aspect. In terms of personal, I think, just being a good person, giving charity, being kind, all the right things to do. So the money thing, it usually comes if you're a good entrepreneur.
Yes.
Good entrepreneur. But definitely not the goal.
We talk about that a lot on the show, that money's the byproduct, not the primary. And I want to hit on, you literally, I don't know if you could have named 4 better things, and I want our listeners to hear, I'm going to say them one more time, because literally I think these are maybe the 4 best things that the reason why you should be in business: for purpose, for value, for problem solving, and for team building. I don't know if I could name another one that you named in those 4. That really should be, when people say they want to start a business to get rich, it's the dumbest reason you could do it, because as you know, money burns, money comes and goes. It really doesn't make, we all know money doesn't buy happiness. It buys depression, really, most of the time. But man, those 4 things are key. So let me ask you that last question, then we'll kind of wrap up, is in doing that, how do you feel like you set yourself up moving forward for success with swag.com? I don't want to say what's your secret sauce if you don't want to kind of share some of that, but is it company culture? Is it going back to the thing you said, knowing your customer? What's kind of for an entrepreneur listening right now, and you were to say, hey, if you're not doing blank, you have to do this starting today, because this is a secret sauce of why our company is so great?
I would say it's 2 things specifically for me. Number 1 is listening to your customer is the most important thing. It's everything, especially in a business like ours, where we have customers and we want to give them to purchase. I mean, think about this in general. You could do everything right. Just imagine you do every single thing right as a business. We built a beautiful website. We get the right ads. We get the right SEO, the articles. We drive the right leads. The leads come to our site and they want to purchase swag. They have an in-hand date. They have an event. Everything is 100% perfect. They place the order. We get their money, and we give them a bad customer experience. We're rude to them. We deliver it a day late. We print it off. Every single thing that we did perfect is all now messed up because of the last thing.
I love
right?
that.
They're not going to remember that thing. They're not going to remember all the good things. They're going to remember the last thing. They're going to remember, I didn't get my product on time. I had an event on Monday and you delivered on Wednesday. I want my money back. They'll never come to buy from us again. They'll tell all their friends how bad we were, right? So you need to really focus on the customer because that's the only way you're going to grow as a business. You want that customer to buy once and you want them to buy many times throughout the year. And you want to buy them for several years. And you want it when they leave 3 years later that they onboard their replacement. You know, that's the only way you're really going to grow. So you have to give the customer the best experience possible. That's number one. And number two, I would say the biggest key to our success, my success personally in life at this point, is not being afraid of failure. You know, treating failure as a way to be successful. That's really it. If you change it, it's kind of like this mentality that I think about.
So good.
Win or learn, right? There's no win or lose. There's no losing. It's win or learn. If you don't win right away, take it as a learning experience, but you better take it as a learning experience. If you do things and you fail and you don't learn from it, then you're just a failure. You're never going to be successful. But if you launch things and you fail and you learn from it and you make it better, and then you fail again and you learn from it, make it better, and you keep you keep doing it, you keep chipping away at the problem and keep learning from it, it's unlimited what you can accomplish.
That's amazing, dude. Jeremy, I cannot thank you. Entrepreneurs, I hope you've been listening intently to this episode of the Down to Business podcast, where we talk about how to help you in the areas of business, finance, marketing, and anything between with successful and passionate business owners throughout the world and country. This is Jeremy Park, owner, co-founder, CEO, swag.com. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for being on this episode, brother. We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy man with your 100 employees and everything you got going on in the world. Everybody go to swag.com. Check out anything you need for B2B, your business needs. You can find it there for promotional products. And again, Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the show, and God bless you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
Awesome. See you later, guys.